What were your thoughts on Penn State tight end Theo Johnson? And how do you think he can kind of come in here, and how much playing time would he earn behind Daniel Bellinger? And what is this opportunity like now that Darren Waller is no longer on the team?
Well, certainly, I think that those tight end 2 reps are there for the taking, right? I think that if Waller was on the team, and Waller is more of a receiver than a traditional tight end, so there was certainly a world where like Bellinger and Darren Waller would have been on the field at the same time, plenty. But now you're probably streamlining it a little bit more. But I also think that those Waller reps where he's coming from the slot, I actually think that Theo Johnson might take a handful of those snaps, because when you look at his Penn State tape, the alluring part of him is that size and speed matchup that he presents. I mean, I'm just looking at his mock draftable chart right now, and is over 6'6", 92nd percentile, 270 pounds. That's 75th percentile. But I mean, for a receiving type of tight end, I mean, that percentile is even higher. He was 91st percentile in 10-yard split, 91st percentile in 40-yard dash, 96th percentile in vertical jump, 93rd percentile in broad jump. So not only is this guy huge, he's a crazy athlete. So those are percentiles for the entire tight end position. Those aren't even weight adjusted. And when I watched Theo Johnson, there were people who said, okay, he could be a second round pick. I was more towards, I thought he was going to be like a priority day 3 type of guy, because he just his game and his tape, I should say, was not as well rounded. Now, if you were projecting what he could be as a big athlete, sure, I could understand late second, early third round. That was a little rich for me, but even for what he is in his current state, it's useful, especially with Darren Waller no longer on the team, because the way that I saw him potentially being utilized is truly this mismatch player where, one, if the defense you're going up against is using a much smaller corner to particularly man their slot players, you just play 500 with them, right? I mean, like, just throw them jump balls. I mean, a lot of that stuff is going to be pretty easy for Theo Johnson if you're going up against a smaller corner. Now, if you're going up against maybe a linebacker or a safety, somebody who can match up with him a little bit more with strength and length, well, then all of a sudden, now that athleticism comes into play. Now this is somebody who could be a seam player, who could go right up the middle of the field, who you can feed balls between the linebacker and the safety level, somebody that can consistently attack over the middle. And I think that that's really where his value is going to come from. How much they are going to put him in those situations, I think, is to be seen. Kind of depends how quickly he's able to really hit the ground running, how much he's able to get his confidence down. But in terms of, an outlook for Theo, with Waller coming back, I felt like Theo Johnson really was not going to get much playing time at all this upcoming season. But with Waller now retired, Johnson, to me, is somebody who I think can really feed into those streamlined slot receiver roles where Bellinger can be more of that kind of do-it-all tight end for you. He could be in slot, he could be in line, but some of those vertical slot routes, which we know Darren Waller could have run, you can put Theo Johnson in that spot, and I think that his athleticism and his size make him very alluring there. Tracy is the player who, to me, is like the ultimate wild card for New York's situation. This is a former wide receiver who played wide receiver for most of his career when he was in college. I can't remember. It has escaped me. What was the school that he was at before Purdue?
Iowa.
Thank you. It was
not exactly the dynamic firepower type of
the color black was in my head. I was just like, which school is it? Because I couldn't get Purdue out of my head, which is obviously where he came from when he was going through the draft cycle. So he was a wide receiver while he was at Iowa. Got some work there, but really not as much as he wanted to. Transfers over to Purdue. He's sort of this like, okay, well, is he a wide receiver? We really think he could be a great running back. But at that point in his career, understandably so, Tracy was like, all right, well, I got 1 year of college eligibility left. And if you tell me to switch positions and it doesn't work well, I will not go to the NFL. There's no chance that that any team will take a chance on me, let alone draft me. But it was a calculated risk because his coaches said, you have the skill set of a running back. So he makes the switch over to running back in his final year, and it was his most productive and his best season for him to get drafted where he did and now have the opportunity that he does with the Giants. To me, he is among those 3 running backs that we mentioned, Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, and Tyrone Tracy. Tracy is the best playmaker of the bunch. Like, I think that he has got the best eye for space. I think he knows how to make guys miss. He turns into kind of this like backyard football type of a player once he really gets going and once he really gets in a groove and once he is confident. And then, of course, that receiver background is there for him. So if you want to keep him in on third downs, or even if you're trying to run passes out of the backfield on early downs as well, he is going to give you the most natural hands. He's going to be the best separator. He's going to become that playmaker after the catch very naturally, because some running backs aren't. Some running backs, they like catch the football and then they go like, okay, let me just either run forward or run out of bounds the way I need to, and we'll get to the next play. Tracy's somebody who's going to cut back inside. He's going to cut up field. He's going to get grass. He's going to get more yards. So I think that he actually has the highest ceiling of the three guys that we talked about there. And it's because of everything that he brings to the table, the natural playmaking ability, the receiving ability, and just the overall athleticism. So if he can really get confidence in training camp and in the early parts of the season, I think the second half of the year could potentially be all him. Like, they're just leaning on him. It's not that the other guys won't be involved, because in today's day and age, it is running back by committee for most teams in the NFL, but he could be their number one option in the backfield. I would not be shocked.
Malik Nabers, how excited should Giants fans be? And do you believe he has the potential to be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL?
The excitement should be high, and the answer is yes, like truly. And that is high praise, right? We're talking about guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. I mean, like, those are 5 right there. And there's so many great wide receivers that I didn't even name outside of that bunch. So to say that a guy can be a top 5 receiver, I mean, like, you got to be really damn good in this league. I mean, that's just where the league is going. There's so many great wide receivers, but Malik Nabers, in my opinion, has the skill set, the athletic talent, the gifts, the playmaking ability to be that and be in that conversation. So I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but truly, I think that this guy, when you look at this wide receiver group for the Giants, why wouldn't you feed the offense through him? I think he's going to have the best return on investment in any situation, whether he's on the line of scrimmage, off the line of scrimmage, in the slot, whatever it is. His movement skills are rare. His separation ability is rare. And I think that whether it's Drew Lock, whether it's Daniel Jones, they're going to see that in practice, and they're going to go, okay, well, if I need a completion, let me go to the guy that I think is going to be the most open most of the time. And to me, even as just a rookie, I think that's going to be Malik Nabers. So he is a player who I was extremely high on in this past draft class. And I think that he does have that like top 5 wide receiver potential to him.
Yeah. But the Giants did select Andrew Phillips from Kentucky. And it looks like Joe Shane and Brian Dable and Shane Bowen are probably going to use him as their nickel, their slot player. So what was your opinion of Andrew Phillips from Kentucky? And do you think he can slide in as a natural nickel?
Yeah. It was interesting to me because when I heard that they were moving him to nickel, I was pretty surprised, because Phillips played a lot on the outside when he was at Kentucky. Yeah. And I thought he played a style that was really complimentary of Deonte Banks. Like, I loved Banks. I think he was a top 20 player for me in the previous year's class as well, because he was one of the best man coverage corners in the class. Now, I know that Wink's not there anymore, so it's okay, a little bit different. It might not be as aggressive with man coverage on the outside, but like, to me, you had Deonte Banks on one side, you had Andrew Phillips on the other, who Phillips, I remember being super impressed with him when he was at the Senior Bowl, because of how fearless he was as a press man coverage defender, whether he was going up against like Lab McConkey or whether he was going up against Johnny Wilson. Like, it didn't matter, like size, shape, like what his skill set, it didn't matter. Like, he was ready to press man cover and get hands on and turn and run with whoever it was. And I thought he did a really nice job, especially in that second day of the week in that situation. So I don't think he can't play in the slot, but it's surprising to me that they wouldn't pair those two with similar skill sets on the outside to give themselves the ability to say, hey, we're running 2-man here. Hey, we're running cover 0. Hey, we're running cover 1, like whatever it is. And just telling those two guys on the outside, man up, get in this guy's face. Don't let him catch the football. And you can still obviously sort of do that with Phillips in the slot, but it's not an easy as a call out. It's like, okay, we're like man on the outside. Like, that's what we're playing here. Like, whoever's kind of going out there, we got Phillips, we got Banks. They're going to play man on the outside. And with Flott, I felt like Flott's best years at LSU was with him in the slot. So to me, we'll see if it works out for them. Maybe they'll make a switch when it was in training camp. But to be honest with you, when I looked at the skill set and the successes of those two guys specifically, I would have had it flipped. But again, these are sort of the team-centric parts of the evaluation that we aren't as privy to on the outside of things. Maybe it was like, hey, we're drafting this guy with this kind of vision because of this reason, and we'll see if it comes to fruition for them. But in terms of what we've seen already from their tape, I felt like you would have flipped those two, and Flott would have stayed in the nickel, and Phillips would have played on the outside.
I wonder how much of it has to do with Cordell Flott's, I don't want to say inability, but he struggles against the run. I think that could be a reason.
And that's huge, right?
Yes.
Because and people forget about that when they think about slot corners. And that's a reason why one of the many reasons why I was so high on Cooper DeJean from Iowa is because, okay, we love to say that this guy can play slot corner or he could play outside corner, but when you play the slot, you are physically closer to the ball. You are physically closer to where any sort of run fit would be. So you've got to be a lot better at that. And I never worried about him because he was one of the best run defending corners that we had in the class, one of the best run defending corners that we've seen over the last couple of years. And so just to your point, I didn't mean to cut you off with it, but like that is a big reason why somebody could go, okay, you're better at covering in the slot, but if teams run to your side, you're getting blown off the ball. That can't happen because as much as it is a passing league, it starts by limiting what teams can do up front, and then you go from covering the pass from there.
Safety, Tyler Nubin. Do you like Tyler Nubin? Xavier McKinney, no longer a New York Giant. He is now in Green Bay. So what was your opinions of the Minnesota Golden Gopher, Tyler Nubin, and his ball skills?
Yeah, love him. I really do. He was my safety one in this past class. He was a top 32 player for me. He got a late first, early second round grade for me. I felt like he was being undervalued in the draft class simply because we looked at the safety class as a whole. And I think everybody was just like, yeah, it's a down safety year. It's like, yeah, okay, it's a down safety year, but like Tyler Nubin's still really good. And I know he didn't test super well, and I think that really scared people off with him, but I just tell them that there's plenty of players every year where you just go, I just turn on the tape, right? I mean, like we can't sit here and say like, oh, the combine, there's no pads, there's no cleats, there's no physicality, there's nothing like that, and then try to weigh that athleticism more than when we see the athleticism on tape. And for me, I saw the athleticism from Tyler Nubin on tape, especially because when you watch him, I have in his scouting report, like, you don't want him in cover one situations. You don't want him to be a center fielder, a single high safety. He doesn't necessarily have that range to get true, like middle of the field or opposite hash to the sideline. But in a two high system, can absolutely play deep in coverage. He can absolutely play half field coverages. And he's also fantastic in robber roles as well. So to me, he gives you so much versatility as a safety. He's got great ball skills. I think he anticipates very well where the ball is going and when to break on it. Sometimes that makes you look even faster than you are when you're already a step ahead, confidently getting to where the pass is being thrown. And I think there are a handful of examples in last year's tape from Tyler Nubin that showcased that. So to me, very versatile safety. And as long as you're not asking him to play cover one, I thought he was he was a back end of the first round, early part of the second round type of a player. I think the Giants got a really good one with him.